Episode 74 of Strange Brow Radio. I am again your host, Tobe Johnson, and each and every week, every Monday, maybe Sunday night, we put out a new episode, and you are listening to 7-4. I guess it feels like a milestone for some reason. I remember having 75 cents in my pocket. Felt so much better than 74 cents. You can play 3 video games. You can play three games of Double Dragon for 75 cents. Now, there's a deep pull, Double Dragon. Vintage arcade games rock. Well, I really went off the deep end here with this diatribe, haven't I? Haven't even told you about our sponsors. We'll tell you more about them in a second. But first of all, our guest today is Suzanne Ferencak of the Back 80. Let me tell you about her in just a moment. Okay, no more vintage arcade talk. Suzanne Ferencak, star of the documentary The Back 80, streaming on Amazon Prime, tells the story of, well, an extended experiencer, someone that lives with the phenomena. That's what an extended experiencer of Sasquatch is. And she's no different, although until this interview, Suzanne has really never gone on the record about all the other things that have happened at her property. And sometimes they just need a moment to ruminate and coalesce as being related. So Suzanne and I go down that road, and I'm happy we did. So, without further ado, my guest today, Suzanne Ferencak in Ohio. All right, I am here with Suzanne Ferencak. Hello, Suzanne.
Hello, Tobe. How are you?
Good. So, people should know that you have a documentary that's out on Amazon, and it's called The Back 80, a modern-day Bigfoot encounter. And so I've called to talk to you a little bit about why that documentary was made, but also talk to you about your experiences beforehand, before the day you saw a roadside crossing. And if anybody listens to, the show, then they know how quickly things turn, for the strange, especially with the things that we do talk about. But we'll get there later. But tell everybody a little bit about you, Suzanne, and maybe take us back to your preconceived notions about Bigfoot in general and growing up in, in and around a place where they frequent.
Well, I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, so I wasn't anywhere near anything of the sort, except for the fact that, I'd always done a lot of camping, and my husband and I, Bernie, we were married in '92, and so we both kind of came from a camping background, and went to a lot of music festivals and Grateful Dead, saw a lot of shows, and But when we got together, every time we could get out of the city, we'd go camping a lot, and then we were fortunate enough in 1999 to purchase a house in rural Holmes County, Ohio, which is the northwest corner of Holmes County. If you look at it, it's kind of like a notch in the county, and it's known as the canoe capital of Ohio because of the Mohican River running through. And for years, growing up as kids, we all went down here for vacation, and everybody in Ohio, always has a great time canoeing on the Mohican and stuff. And so based on my husband's business, he's a software programmer, we were able to move down here, and it was harder for me to find a job down here, but I helped him with the business and kitchen table book work and things like that. And so we had been on this property for 13 years before I ever even thought about a Bigfoot. And to answer your question about my preconceived notions of a Bigfoot, the first thing was, watching the PGF on In Search Of when I was a kid. And, so that was interesting. I mean, that was one of those shows that, everybody sat down and watched, in the family. And so fast forward to 2012, all those years later, the next thing I'd ever even heard about it was when we were camping with my sister-in-law, Kat, and she had talked about wherever we were camped, she was calling it squatchy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Squatchy. What does that mean? And so she told me about the Finding Bigfoot show. And, I surfed it a couple times and I didn't, I don't know, it didn't really catch my interest at the time. And until a year later, May 14th, 2013, I had just left a job in Cleveland. I had been working at Burke Lakefront Airport it's a private airport right downtown Cleveland, and I'd been working there for 5 years and commuting half a week, again, because it's not easy to find good jobs around here. So I did, spent half the week up there and half the week at home, and then, after commuting all that time, and it was just kind of getting old, and Bernie's like, just, his business was doing well, so I said, he's like, why don't you just come down back here full time and you'll find something. And I'm like, yeah, I hate not having another job. And so I said, well, okay. And had, started the summer vacation 2 weeks into it. And it was a beautiful night in May. And, this time of year, we're always trying to warm up enough to be able to be back outside again. And it's just kind of starting, although today, like, it snowed and 3 days ago there were tornadoes, so, but anyway, it was a great night, and I went to the store, and I was going to sit out by the bonfire, which we have 18 acres here, which is small by comparison to what surrounds us. On one side of us, a quarter mile away, we have some houses, but other than that, behind us, there's hundreds of acres. One property is 200, and they just use it for prize buck hunting. They actually live up east side of Cleveland. And the other way, there's, some miles, and, to the north and to the east, there's, bunches of farms, and it's rolling hills and a bunch of tributaries that run into the Mohican River. And we're 1.3 miles from the river. And so I was going down this little back road to the little country store, and being a beautiful day, I just stopped there and for a few minutes because I was taking pictures of some horses, and looked forward and saw this big black thing going across the road. I mean, it was in the air going across the road. It wasn't like walking, and it was 240 feet in front of me is what we had measured. And I just didn't understand what that was that I had seen. I mean, first I thought it was a deer, and, these are things that you'll hear in the movie and whatever, but, it's the same story every time. I was just like, what was that? And, but it gave me the creeps, and I don't know, it's just kind of a freaky feeling because I just couldn't figure out what that was. And then after, a few seconds, I don't know how much time went past, but, the only thing, landed on my sister-in-law's thought about it being a Sasquatch. And I'm like, there's no way that there's a Sasquatch in Ohio. I mean, that's just the craziest thing I've ever, thought about. And so I just, started laughing, but I was still kind of freaked out. And, I just looked over to see if I could see it going up, because it was coming down. I mean, it was to the left of this, like, basically one lane road. You kind of have to pull over, if anybody else is coming. But there's a hill, kind of a hillside, and then there's the road, the dirt road, and then there's just a very slight ravine going down into a creek. And then there's a kind of a taller part on the right side, but, I just called my sister-in-law and I just told her I saw Sasquatch, and, I started laughing and like, this is not real. And, got home, talked to my husband about it all night. And, he's like, well, maybe it was a bear. I mean, there haven't been any bear sightings in this area that we had ever heard of. But whatever, there had to be some other better explanation. And, sat up and thought about it all night. And then a couple days later, I found I Googled to see if anybody in Ohio had ever seen a Bigfoot before. And then I come up with this website, bfro.net, and there's a map. And then I clicked right down into Holmes County and read a report from 11 months prior, a mile from where I had seen it. And that just blew my mind. I'm like, this is crazy. I can't believe anybody's ever seen one in Ohio. And I can't believe that somebody saw it a mile from where I was, and there was a couple cars, more than one people saw it cross the road, unrelated people. And I don't know, that just started the craziness. And 2 weeks later, my brother-in-law was down for Memorial Day weekend, and, we're just kind of goofing around. I'm trying to learn, everything about this, and it still doesn't really seem real. And it still kind of seems like a joke, but maybe it isn't. And I don't know. It was somewhere in between. This it could be real, and this is just crazy to even consider this. And so we went to YouTube, and we're listening to all these howls and all this crazy stuff, interviews, and so we were just goofing around, just throwing out howls in the middle of the afternoon for fun. And then later, just like, okay, we're done with that. And then we went out to the fire and hung out there for a while listening to tunes. And 1:00 in the morning, my husband went to bed, and my brother-in-law and I were just sitting there, and we turned off the tunes, and we're just quiet. And all of a sudden, my brother-in-law, without warning, just lets out this huge screech, just like from the depths of his frustrated soul. He let out this huge screech and broke the silence. And it was 35 degrees out and dropping, which was just terrible for a Memorial Day weekend. But we had this huge pile of wood, and, we were warm. And I'm like, hey, good wood, Barry. That was awesome. And it sounded like one of those screeches that later I'd heard Cliff Bergman do. And a couple seconds later, this screech came back at us. That sounded just like what he had done, but it was loud, and it was like from the direction of where my sighting was. But I mean, it was like super loud. I mean, like right freaking there on top of us. And I didn't even know what to think. And I just looked over at him like, what did you just do? What just happened? And then while I'm trying to figure that out, he did another screech, my brother-in-law, and it was just, he did another really, really good one. I mean, without telling me he was going to do it or having any sort of reaction. And, and then, sure as hell, this thing comes back at us, and it was this screech, and it went into a howl, a huge howl, and it just trailed off. And I had like a little mini meltdown. I mean, I started laughing like uncontrollably because I was just, for me, after listening to my family for 2 weeks give me hell about, you saw Sasquatch, kind of thing, I'm just like, what was that? It just, I don't know. I had tears coming down. I mean, we said this, it's like every cell in my body just was like buzzing with, I don't know what, but it just was crazy. And, I talked to my brother-in-law about this a couple of years later, and I'm just like, God, that second one was loud. And he's like, no, I think it was closer. I'm like, oh God, you think about that. So that was the start of it. And, it just, the end of summer in August, we had a whole canoe group camping with us at our back campsite here, and this new girl said she saw it in our back field, and I didn't pay close enough attention to her to, it was this big fog would rolled in, and I didn't see it, and you would think I would have paid better attention, but I don't know, I didn't. But I talked to her about it a couple weeks later. She fessed up to everybody. She thought that we were playing a joke on her. She's like, I called up to say that my report had been published in the, BFRO website. And she's like, well, Suzanne's serious about this Bigfoot stuff? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, I saw it in the backyard, and then drew this picture and told this whole story. And the story that she told mirrored the reactions that she had that night, because I couldn't understand why she was walking back to the campsite and getting all freaked out, and then the coyotes went off pretty close by, and anyway, so then I really got upset. Not upset, I don't know if upset's the right word. Scared, somewhere between scared, upset, not wanting to go off the porch, and I'm one that used to wander around all over the place. So twice I felt like I was grounded on the porch, and then, stuff just you know,
Well,
continued
let's
on.
talk about that moment. What do you mean grounded?
Well, I just felt like I was afraid to go off the porch because I didn't know what the hell was out there.
Gotcha.
You
Okay.
know, and I had been in contact with BFRO investigator and Mark Mazel, and he had said the first thing he said to me after I actually did make a report. I mean, like, I didn't want to make a full report, but I'm like, hey, you know, I saw something. This was just after Memorial Day, and I'm like, gosh, I really got to, you know, ask for some guidance here. And he's like, well, yeah, there's been you know, in the past 6 months, there have been several reportings, you know, sightings in your area. And I just was like, you're kidding me. It's like, and I'm like, are they aggressive? I mean, you know, what am I dealing with? And so I just didn't feel comfortable. I just needed to kind of retreat back to the porch and be safe, which is, you know, for 13 years, all I had done is, you know, I mean, I'd string an extension cord from the porch all the way out to the fire, you know, just to listen to tunes out there. I mean, I'd be out there all night. I never was afraid. I mean, I lived in Cleveland, and, you know, and I'm like, this is the country. This is fabulous. You know, what do I have to be afraid of? And then it just turned everything upside down. And, you know, I'm better about going out to more remote parts of the property now. But now we built 2 big, huge porches. And so now I have all my amenities here and everything. And I just stay on the porch for the most part. I don't go that far except on rare occasions. And I've kind of, you know, made a deal with them. Okay, this is my space and you can have that. Let's just get along because I'm not moving and, you know, this is your home too. And, you know, of course that took a while to get to that point, but everything's peaceful now. So I'm happy about.
Okay, so are they coming in to the house area? Is that why you gave them a warning?
Well, yeah. In 2014, September of 2014, Tom Yamarone had been nagging me hard enough to get a recorder, as the other investigators that I was, you know, closer with and got to know were like, you got to get a recorder, you got to get a recorder. And I'm like, finally, I'm like, okay, I'll get a recorder. And so the second night I had it out, it was kind of like on this wood pile, kind of back where the campfire was. I brought it back and listened to every single minute of it, and which was interesting because I'd always, you know, kind of was proud of the fact that I could identify every single sound around here. And the second night I listened to that recording, though, I heard these heavy footfalls coming towards the recorder. And I'm like, what is that? I mean, it wasn't, I know what deer sound like because there's an apple tree right next to our porch. And, you know, there are deer always over there. And, you know, I get off, you know, a lot of times I'd walk around without a flashlight and then I get snorted at. I mean, the deer are everywhere. I don't even think about it. But this wasn't like, you know, deer go, you know, and they're running by. This was like, go boom, boom. Yeah, and so I have the recording. I could send it to you. But it just was freaky. And so our family lives, you know, both of our families live up in Cleveland, and we have a second home up there. We fixed up, and Bernie's mom lives in now. And so I, you know, putting the headphones on all the in-laws, you know, they're hanging out, you know, like, hey, listen to this. You know, how you like me now? What's this? And they're all just like the faces, you know, it's so great to see their faces. So a month after that, I was sitting on the porch, and again, not the porch we have now, but my back was towards the side of the house, towards what I call now the creepy hill. And I heard the same heavy footfalls approaching me on the porch. And this was somewhere around 11:30 at night. And I can't even tell you what that moment did. It could have done in terms of damage to our lives. Because after that, it approached. I could hear the footfalls, sound exactly like the recording, and then it stopped right over my right shoulder and was standing there breathing heavily. And if I were to put my hand up over my right shoulder, that's where the mouth would have been. Now there's this lattice that we had on the edge of the porch, like if the kind that if you grow clematis or ivy or something.
Sure.
But it didn't have any ivy on it, and it was just this thing was there, and it was loud, and I froze thinking about the fact that there's no way that this could actually be happening right now, and like, just get a hold of yourself. This is just not happening, but it was. And so I just picked up the my computer, and I walked into the house, backed into the house, and I didn't come out for 2 solid days. And then I told Bernie that the dream is dead. I can't live here anymore. It's not fun. I can't even be on the porch. This is out of hand. And, in between 13 and 14, I mean, there was a lot of stuff. There's knocks and trees going down, and I just, none of which could be proven to be anything other than, I don't know. I mean, it was a rough time. It took me a while. It took me a couple of weeks to get to the point where I was seriously not going to, I told Bernie, okay, maybe we'll stay. But somebody had told me that you just need to make a stand and you have to talk to them. And I'm like, that we're talking to these things, And I'm like, well, what the hell? What else do I got? I got nothing to lose. So I'm marching the trash cans down to the end of the driveway, and I'm like, listen, we have to live here together in peace, and you have to quit scaring me. And I appreciate the fact that this is your home, but this is our home, and we got to figure this out.
Well, let's talk about this moment here, because it sounds so alien to people that don't deal with this, but having a talk with the woods, I know how crazy it feels to do it, but describe to people what this is like, because literally you're going out there talking to the trees. You don't really, and tell me if I'm wrong, you're not seeing anything at this point. You're just basically, you're going out there kind of winging it and hoping that this works. Just describe how you felt when you did that.
I was mad. Yeah, and I was talking to the air. I was talking to I don't know who I was talking to, but I was just putting it out there. And I was mad, and I just wanted, it came from the heart. Mm-hmm. I was just like, I don't know who you are or what you're doing, but mm-hmm. I kind of had I was starting to wonder if they were able to hear what I was saying. Because there have been a couple incidences, and again, it sounds crazy to say this, but, it used to be fun. Before that scary part, it was actually kind of fun, because then I'm like, wow, there's a knock, and so I'm just like, trying to be observant and, downloading the knocks onto the, and sending them off to the investigators. What do you think about this? And we debunked some of them. Which was great, because I'm like, oh, good, that's an answer. Right. And any answer was a good answer. And, but I remember one night, again, it was kind of almost like kind of a fun game. And I hadn't heard anything in 2 weeks. And at that point, it was like 2 weeks not hearing something was like a long time. And I'm like, okay, well, just for fun, I was just kind of being a little salty, I was just sitting on the porch. And I was just like, well, if you're here, and you're supposed to be so big and strong, then why don't you show me how big and strong you are? It's like, I don't know, a couple of minutes later, all of a sudden this huge tree goes down on the creepy hill 100 feet behind me. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, okay, I get it. I actually started laughing, and I think I had a few more tears coming down. But I'm just like, oh, my God. They just heard what I said. Now, then, of course, I can't prove that because trees go down. So.
Right. Are you still doing that at that point, Suzanne? Are you still talking yourself out of the phenomena constantly, or are you full on knowing that they're coming to your house?
Well, when the thing screamed at us in May of 2013, I knew it was real. I knew it was real. Now them being around after that with like the knocks and stuff, I was trying to be skeptical. But again, I had great investigators around me, and God bless them for it. And they're like, he's got Sasquatch fever. I remember Cliff. I was asked to do Finding Bigfoot, and during the investigation, Cliff is like, do you think that maybe you just didn't notice this stuff happening before? And I'm like, I mean, I said, well, maybe, okay, maybe I didn't notice that these knocks were happening, but I'm thinking, I never had heard sounds like that before in the 13 years that I had been there. But then all of a sudden it started happening. So, I mean, I was pretty convinced that they were real. Now, them being able to hear what I was saying, that was kind of interesting. I just kind of kept stacking up examples. But I was still just trying to get evidence. But then also trying to figure it out. But then also, trying to turn off the people looking at me sideways, and not taking all that personally, and just like, okay, it's just me and them, and I'm just going to sit here and listen and see what happens.
Let's stick with them listening to you or understanding or hearing what you're saying. What other examples do you have that they potentially were listening?
There was, I'll jump to after the thing had approached the house, and when I wasn't happy. There was one of those weekends right after that had happened. We went up to Cleveland for the weekend, hang with the family, and I was just so happy to get out from here, and it felt like, I felt like I just could breathe. And so I had a great weekend in Cleveland, and then as we were coming back home and coming around the corner towards the house, I just got that heavy feeling again. It's kind of, I describe it like wearing a wool sweater in summer. It was just heavy. And I was just mad. I'm like, oh gosh, this is such a beautiful night. This is one of these nights I would have, sat out and enjoyed it. But I just got out of the car and I was just marching to the house because our garage is an old hog barn and it's 100 feet from the house. And I'm just marching to the house, and I just, in my mind, I was just totally putting it out there. And I'm like, I am not sitting out here tonight. You are not going to scare me. And I'm going in the house, and I'm going to be safe in the house, and, basically screw you. And so at 3:00 in the morning, got up to go to the bathroom, and I came back lying in bed, and I'm just like reading my phone or something, some news, and getting ready to fall back asleep again. And then all of a sudden, whack, this huge, I don't know, sounded like a baseball, thrown at 98 miles an hour, hit like the window right above my head. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. Just told them to, screw off, and I'm safe in my house, and you can't get me. And they just showed me that they can get me anywhere they want. And so I'm like, oh my God, it freaked me out. The cat went running off the bed. My husband didn't wake up. That was the strangest thing. I don't understand how he didn't wake up, but he didn't. And so I'm like, a month later, I'm thinking, now that's just crazy. Because, Bernie walked around the house to see if there was any dents, and then he's like, maybe it was a bat that had just, gone haywire, or something, an animal of some sort. And who knows, there could have been, other logical explanations. And so I'm like, okay, fine. And so a month later, I, same time of night, got up, and I looked out the window again to what I call the creepy hill. And I'm like, you're probably not real. That probably wasn't really you guys. Like, calm yourself, Suzanne. Get over it. That was just some sort of weird thing that happened. And sure enough, I went back to bed, and sure enough, something, 98 mile an hour something, hit the other window on the other side of the bedroom. I'm like, God, the cat went running again. And, so now I'm like, okay, this has happened twice after I've, put this out there. And then actually I could give another example of that at jumping forward several years to this past summer of 2019. It was July. And again, things had quieted down for several years, which I was fine with, except, gave me time to think about it all. And, maybe they left, or, just gave me a chance to calm down. And so I don't know, got home from work, and I was changing clothes, and getting ready to go downstairs, and I looked out the window, our bedroom window, to the creepy hill, and I'm like, I wonder if you're still around. Were you ever around? I kind of miss you. I kind of miss the action a little bit, and it was kind of like I don't know. And then I just went on with it. And then at 3:00 in the morning, I get up, the window's open because it's a warm night, and I'm in the bathroom, and all of a sudden I heard this monster knock from the creepy hill that seems like the sound went directly through the window straight at me into the bathroom. I was like, oh my God, this happened again. So, I don't know. How can I can't prove anything. It's like my husband says, if you don't see the beast hit the tree, you don't know what it is. There's just a lot of unexplained things.
Now, where is Bernie at during all this? He going on the ride with you, or is he a skeptic? How's he treating the phenomena?
He was a skeptic. He's just like, there's got to be other explanations for things. But then he realized that this is, how it affected me. And so but it was hard. It was hard. We had to have a lot of discussions. And we had been married for over 20 years. And so we knew how to talk to each other. And we knew, when you're married to somebody that long, you know exactly, where somebody's at. And he realized that, I wasn't getting off of this thing. And this stuff was happening. And he goes to bed early and I go to bed late. So he was never around for any of this stuff to happen. Except for one of the greatest moments was one time when he was in 2016, late April 2016, around this time of year, actually, a couple weeks from now, we were mushroom hunting in the property behind us, and there were 4 of us, and we were walking from this open area field into the forest area, and then walking up this hill, and all of a sudden this huge whack happened. And again, you can tell the difference. You hear these things enough. You know the difference between a tree breaking or a branch breaking or a big power knock. And he and his dart partner were ahead of me, and they both look at each other, and then they look down to this other friend of ours, and then they're all 3 of them looking back at me because I was the last one in line because I've been taking pictures and stuff. And I'm just like, nanner, nanner, nanner. And that really threw him for a loop because, he couldn't figure that out. And my husband's a mechanical engineer from one of the best, Case Institute of Technology in Cleveland, one of the best schools in the country. And, he studies these things in a very scientific manner. And so what was so great about him is a lot of times he would just keep me calm through all of this and offering other explanations. But again, it was kind of, we had like a little bit for the first time, something that we didn't have in common together. But now, he's learned a lot, as much as I've learned. And, he can't say for sure that he thinks that, that there's Bigfoots around because he can't prove it. And who can, kind of thing. But it was great to have something happen to him too, that he couldn't figure it out. And it's kind of funny because some of the other weird things you said we're going to talk about a little bit later, I kind of felt were directed to him actually, because there were things that were physically moving around here in ways that had no business scientifically doing what they did. And that really twisted him up. And I was just like, okay, that's cool. It's just another weird thing. And, I enjoyed watching him try to figure it all out. So, but we still don't know for sure anything, but
let's talk about these moments here. Was it aimed towards Bernie, these things being moved? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I can't say for sure, obviously, but I kind of think so because, I don't know. I can't. I don't know. It's hard to say. He was, as we had the porch built, the main part of it built by a builder, but all the railings around here and the posts and stuff like that, he had done. He made himself and cutting these angles and all that kind of stuff. So he spent a lot of time, building this thing. And Now, I don't know if this was because we put a 400 square foot porch on a 145-year-old house and things were reacting. I mean, this starts in December of 2016 on his birthday. This whole chapter of these post porch caps moving and other things moving. So I don't know, maybe because it started on his birthday. We came back from dinner. It was his birthday, and we got back to the house, and we were just playing tunes and drinking beers, and it was cold enough. We kept the beverages outside, and within a 20-minute period, the post caps, which were not glued down, the two of them at the bottom of the steps were tilted at angles that were equal to each other. And all of a sudden, Bernie comes in, and he's like, Suzanne, get out of here. There's something weird that's happened. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Let me just finish queuing up this song. Okay, he's like, he comes back in. He's like, come here and look at this. And I've got a picture of it. We had to recreate it because he was so upset. He went and picked them back up and put them back the way they were supposed to be. But he couldn't, to this day, and if you've ever talked to him, he'll tell you that he cannot figure out for the life of him how two of those flat type porch cap things that were snug on top of it, he didn't want to glue them down till the warm weather came because, just for the glue setting up or something, how both of them were at, the angles that they were matching each other. And after that, well, there's some other things that happened after that, but as far as the porch caps were concerned, it went on for a year and a half. And I wouldn't let him glue the things down because I'm like, this is interesting.
Well, now wait. Okay, so this kept happening.
Yes.
Okay. And by porch caps, you mean the little fittings that go on top of beams that are like for railings, like the little caps, decorative caps?
Yeah, there's the railing, and then there's like a post, and then the decorative cap that goes on top of it.
Okay, and he hadn't glued it so they could be slipped off and repurposed or posed or played with by something that had hands.
Right, but you had to yank it off. But yeah,
gotcha.
And so that's why he couldn't understand because, again, being a mechanical engineer, he was trying to figure out what would do that. And of course, I'm asking a lot of questions of my people around me, going, what can do? I mean, and I would hope that if anybody can help me figure that out, anybody out there that has an idea. I mean, I went through, a whole forum of people asking them what could have done this. I mean, is there, something that, is there gas coming up? But Bernie's like, it still didn't make any sense that the two of them were the two opposite angles of each other. And it happened within 20 minutes. And there was a huge light on those steps, too. So it happened around 11 o'clock at night with a huge light on them. And he drinks the low alcohol beer, so he can get through it pretty fast. So, I mean, in between beers, these things move. I mean, it was weird. And then, but it kept happening. It happened.
So wait, he would walk in, grab another Michelob Ultra and come out, and then he would see these caps faced kind of in the same direction. And this was a pattern for how long?
Well, it happened once that two of the caps, porch caps were at the angle. It only happened once with both of them. And in between is, Bud Select 55. I'm the Mick Ultra girl.
Okay.
But that only happened once. But things that happened after that were one single post cap moving, or that had moved. And so it got to be kind of a joke because it was happening a lot. And there was one time, that in September of 2017, that it happened 3 times in 4 days. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And then it's happened at other ends of the porch. Mm-hmm. It's happened at different seasons. But there's something really freaky that happened the day after the two had moved. if you want to hear that.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
I just could go on about this stuff. It's crazy. For his birthday, I had purchased a new office chair for him. And so that night, before the post cab started moving, I had moved the chair out onto the porch. And it was kind of a snowy night and stuff. It was mostly just cold, actually. It wasn't snowy that night. We got up the next morning, and when I got home from work, Bernie said to me, he's like, were you sitting out? It was actually the next day. He's like, were you sitting out late that night? I'm like, no, it was cold and I was tired because you stayed up late the night before. It's like, no, I did not sit out last night. He's like, well, the chair's turned around facing the view on the porch that didn't have railings at that point. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, come look at this. And the chair, I had put the back up against one of the larger posts, one of the big beams going up to the ceiling. And it was turned around and facing out the view that I'm looking at right now. And I'm like, well, that's weird. And so then we started to try to recreate how that could have been done. And we're like, well, maybe it was a raccoon that jumped on it and took it for a ride, or, there were no paw prints or anything. And so, yeah, it was weird, but we kept the experiment going for a long time, at least for the rest of, for a while. And this chair did not move through a major gale storm. It kicked up, so because we put it back to where it was. So I don't know what did that. So that was just another strange thing that happened.
Now, are you both toying with Ghost at the same time? Is that part of what you're thinking? Are you?
Well, I said, I don't think this is Bigfoot related, Bernie. I was like, if this is Ghost, because he's had experience with ghosts because of where he lived in Kirtland Hills growing up, and several experiences with it, and actually experienced when he was at college too. So I'm like, I don't know anything about ghosts. It's like, this is your department. You got to figure this stuff out. So I don't know. We just kind of rolled with it. And, about every few months or so, maybe even as long as 6 months, there'd be another porch cap that moved. And Bernie was like, we got to set up a camera. And I'm like, no, because I had people telling me, don't set up a camera. That'll mess up the whole deal. And I'm not going to name names who told me that. But and it turns out that we put the camera on like the heater thing. We've got this tall heater thing. And of course, then I kept moving the heater around to where I was sitting, and it just kind of fell apart. But when we took the camera down, Bernie was mad because then that blew his experiment. And I'm like, yeah, but you're going to blow my experiment if we keep the camera up.
Right.
So we got nothing.
Right.
But
okay, so how long did you keep a camera up?
Oh, probably a month and a half, maybe.
Okay, that's it. Nothing ever happened on camera?
Nope.
No.
Well, actually, no, I take that back. Something did happen. The camera was pointed one way, and one of the porch caps went on the back steps. So I was like, ha ha. So I laughed at that one. He just shook his head. He does not. The only porch cap movement that he actually subscribes to as being weird and unexplained that he can't find an answer to is that first one that happened on December 6th, 2016. The other ones, he's like, what if you're walking up and down and you hit the thing? So at night I would try to do that, and I'd like try to scratch my back on them, try to see what it would take for me to actually move them. And there was no way that, unless you're like coming in with like a 2x4 and you're really whacked it off. But it kept happening though. And then after a while, it actually kind of got in my head about it. And I remember talking to the one unmentioned friend once, and I look over, I'm like, oh my God, it just it happened while I was sitting there on the phone. I mean, unless I just sat down and I didn't notice it, but it was right next to me. The one post that was right next to me. I'm like, okay, I can't handle this anymore. Game's over. And I told Bernie, all right, we're gluing them all down. Game's over. I feel like I'm a little lab rat, just, okay, let's see what she does now. And so Bernie's like, thank you. I've been wanting to glue them down for like a year. So we
Right.
glued them all down, and nothing happened after that. So it was just, I mean, I feel ridiculous even talking about this to some extent because I don't know. There's no explanation for it except, I don't
Well,
know.
the camera part's really interesting. The fact that something happened away from where the camera is, a
I love
similar
that.
trick. Yeah. Yeah, I do
That was
too.
great. I just was like, that was a great moment for me because I'm like, see, told you.
Hmm. Now,
But
before that, did Bernie ever talk about anything following him ghost-wise from, residence to residence? Did you ever have to deal with Bernie's ghost?
no, I mean, he told
Okay.
me the last ghost experience that he had was when he was in college, and they had rented out a dorm or a room in the basement of one of the frat houses for the summer for like $25 a summer or something is all it cost him. And he came home one night and the door lock. They used to lock it like from the inside or something. I don't know. Something was up with the door lock. He was inside the room or came inside and he saw a figure sitting on the couch and he thought it was his roommate and he's like, hey, Jim, whatever, how you doing? And this figure didn't move for a bit and he's like, that's weird. And then I don't know, it kind of turned its head, but he's like, well, I don't know, maybe he had a bad night or something. And he went to bed. Well, when he went to bed, he found his roommate was already asleep. And so he's like, well, what was sitting there on the couch? And I guess it turns out that one of the frat guys had committed suicide many years before or something, so maybe that was him. But so that was one time that Bernie actually saw a ghost. And then, of course,
Hmm.
the houses that he lived in, it was on it's called Little Mountain um, up in Kirtland Hills, and I think there's a lot of Indian burial grounds near there and stuff. And all the old houses were like completely haunted, and they all had, you know, you talk to him about it sometimes about what it was like when they were kids. But there had been no. I mean, since we had moved here in '99, there was never any ghost stuff. We'd never felt like there was ghost stuff. He would have been maybe a little bit more sensitive to it, but we had never had any ghost issues before. So this was new stuff.
Okay. What about, are you in the process of leaving out things for them like food or any kind of mementos or toys or anything like that? What are you doing in that area?
Somebody had told me that about the whole gifting thing. So I would go back to the back campsite and leave stuff out. And Bernie was highly against the idea of leaving food out because it just kind of attracts all kinds of critters. And but I did a few times, and there, so one time something came and ripped up all the tinfoil where the ribs were in, and then the next night, next time something had licked the tinfoil clean, and we decided to put little. I decided to put little shells and marbles and pretty stones and stuff like that on the table, and then we put a game cam right on it. And we found all kinds of interesting things that got up there, including there was a deer. He put his nose up on there because I'd come back down and stuff would be moved around. I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. And then we'd check the game cam, and there was a raven, sitting on the table. Our cat made it all the way down there, was on the table. So I mean, stuff moving on the table is just a bunch of wildlife doing what they do. So, but I don't do anything other than there's no gifting or anything like that going on here.
Okay, so you've never had items arrive?
No, there was one weird stick thing on the ground that looked like somebody told me, well, that's a glyph. And so there's sticks that fell in a strange way. I'm like, oh, cool. So that's what a glyph looks like. Oh, all right, let's watch it and see what it does. And it didn't do anything except for keep breaking down every time my dog stepped on it or something. So I don't have glyphs, and yeah,
Hmm.
there's none of that.
Okay, what about inside the house? Anything happen inside?
No, nope, nothing inside the house.
No.
Nope,
Okay.
no basement issues. Nothing. I can go down in the basement in the middle of the
Hmm.
night. No fear.
Hmm.
Nothing strange in the house.
Okay, what about lights? Have you seen any strange lights in or around your property?
Yes. In 1999, right after we had moved here, in the middle of the night, got up, go to the bathroom, and I looked out the window to the creepy hill, and between our house and the hill, there's all these big, baseball size lights. They look like baseball size lights anyway, maybe ping pong ball, I'm not sure, which is kind of zooming all over the place. I mean, just zoom here, zoom here, zoom here. And it was just like a whole bunch of them. And so I wake up Bernie. I'm like, wake up and look at this. And he got up and he looked out the window. He's like, wow, man, that's weird. And so we're just like, what is this? I was like, okay, welcome to the country. We just moved from the city. Okay, I guess strange things happen. And so we asked the farmer down the road, have you ever seen anything like that before? And he kind of looks at us kind of strangely, and he's just like, no, but they're probably fast moving mating fireflies. Like, okay. It's like, wow, those are big fireflies.
Yeah.
And boy, they must have been moving real fast, but
Right.
that was really strange. So
yeah.
I don't know what that was.
So the neighbors in general, the farmers, people that live out in the country, how close are they to you?
The closest to us, south, a quarter of a mile. Okay. And there was a lady there, elderly lady. She's in the nursing home now, and there's people renting there now. And then a couple other houses right there on 211. But then if we're going north up our road, maybe a mile is the next house. And our house is close to this county road. The front of the house is close to the county road. So there is traffic going up. But then if we look west, a mile and a half to the river, and there's a big hill, and so there's three sides. I don't have hardly anybody.
So if you look out into the trees, you can't necessarily see a porch light on or anything like that?
Only if I'm looking to the south.
Okay.
Now, there's just the one direction.
Mm-hmm.
But other than three sides, no.
Okay, and the farmer's excuse for mating fireflies, what do you put that as far as like 1 through 10, the likelihood that he was accurate, 10 being the most accurate? Do you think that's a possibility?
Well, I mean, at the time I had to consider it because he'd lived here his whole life, and what do I know? But I think he was just trying to find some sort of explanation. But what was interesting about him is we went down, and they have a massive fireworks display down at their place, and we went down there, or I went down there on 4th of July. Bernie wasn't with me, and this was 2013, 4th of July, 2013. And, I'm like, I'm not going to tell him anything about this Bigfoot stuff. He's going to think I'm nuts. But then, of course, I did. And he's like, he got this look on his face. And he's just like, I told him about the scream. And he's like, he called this other guy over. And he's like, Bob, come over here and listen to this. And Bob comes over, and the farmer tells me the story how they had just in the end of May, or whenever, turkey season is here, May sometime, that he and his friend were hunting turkey before dawn, or getting in position or whatever. And they were in the woods. One of them was in the woods, and this huge screech came at them. And his hunting buddy came out, the seasoned hunter came out of the woods. He said his face was as white as a ghost, and said, did you hear that? And the farmer's like, yeah, I heard that. And he's like, what was that? And he's like, I don't know. And then he's kind of like, it's interesting. It was like watching his mind kind of connect some dots. And so he called this other guy, Bob, who's got this property that's actually right down on the river, and they just come down during the summer and on weekends and stuff. And so he tells Bob this story, and then Bob's like, well, yeah, my kids heard something do the same thing. They were all camping out, on the property, and the dog went running into the house, and then something screamed at them. And so I think, well, and not to mention the other stories that were going on around here. I mean, I just think that there was I think there was one. I think it was a juvenile. I was just after all this time, I think about it, try to think of what it was, but I think it was kind of like a 19-year-old type male running around just causing havoc everywhere. But yeah, no, nobody around here would ever even talk about Bigfoot. I mean, I've heard UFO stories in the Eagles. Everybody around here's got a UFO story, and I'm not into UFOs, but just for fun, one night I went and asked every single person in the Eagles. I'm like, okay, do you see a UFO? Do you see a UFO? And if they hadn't seen one, they knew somebody that did. But nobody in the entire time, 13 years that we had lived here, had ever said anything about a Bigfoot. And so I go marching in there, and I'm like, all right, peoples, you guys have lived here your whole lives. I mean, there's the people in Loudonville stay in Loudonville, and even if we've lived here 20 years, we're still, city people or whatever, but these people have been here for generations. I said, okay, well, cough it up. Who's seen a Bigfoot? And nobody had ever said that they had. Eventually some stories came out, but nothing. There wasn't anything around here until like 13, 14.
Right. So I mean, after your initial sighting in May 2013, and you hadn't seen anything 13 years prior, you start having all these occurrences on or near your property, sometimes right there on your doorstep. So how would that be? What do you think? What are we missing here as far as their ability to recognize who you are or where you live? I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, it's it's the unending question that I spent hours and years doing here, is asking why. Why did they show up? Why were they, allegedly interested in me? And so I try to, think about why that could be. And from the year that I saw him, the farmer down the road had taken out a nuisance permit. So this might have something to do with it. He dropped 70 deer in like 1 year. I mean, he just took them all out. He and his family, he got booted off of the lease from the lady across the road. She was really mad. But I mean, we had hunters, our good friends forever, that would come down all the time, and they didn't see anything after that. But he would shoot these things and then let them lie or lay, whatever the correct English is there. And they just, I don't know, maybe they were coming in and chomping on all the dead deer that were laying around. Either that or they were feasting on them all. And then after, the farmer killed them all, they left. I mean, that could possibly be it. As far as our particular geographical location, I remember the one night I kind of had a eureka moment. Is I'm trying to learn about the patterns, and people talk about terrain and cover and water and food and all that kind of stuff. I mean, okay, yes, we had so many deer here that they were eating 6 rows into this guy's corn crop, and he was mad about losing all the money. Okay, I get it, but there was just an abundance of everything here, food and everything. But this hill that I talk about, I kind of started thinking about it one night, and the hill juts out almost like a peninsula, where on the left side of the hill, on the north side of the hill, there's a field, cornfield, whatever they were planting that year. And there's trees on top of the hill, which is our property line. And then on the other side, the south side of the hill, is our house and our yard and all that kind of stuff. On the east side of the hill, it was a perfect lookout to this whole bowl, this valley of, a couple fields, a stream running through, another field, and then the big, huge block of forest, which is one of the biggest blocks in Holmes County. And I'm like, this is perfect for hunting, because anything this will bridge 2 different sections of this area. The one section going all the way down to the Mohican, if a Bigfoot wanted to do this, it can get all the way from the Mohican through the other properties that are behind me, including the back 80, and it can get up and then come right to the edge of our peninsula hill and do a knock to somebody on the other side and just like, hey, I'm doing this, or, letting it, I don't know, maybe they let each other know where the deer are or something, because the deer were everywhere. And so there was one night I was sitting, as an example of this, I was sitting on the front porch, which I don't do that often because of the road. And, unless the wind is, hitting me from the west, it's a good place to go when the weather's bad. I just sat here one night and I heard this big knock, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And then 10 minutes later, like right in front of me, like if I were to go in front of me, like quarter of a mile, there's this other huge knock. And then like 15 minutes after that, to my right, there was another knock. And I'm like, this is the best show in the world. It's like nobody would believe this, So it's fun. But I think the terrain is perfect. I mean, we have so much water around here, and there's enough cover, and there's enough food, and our location just might have been the right place for them at the right time. And where they are now and why they left, I have no idea.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you ever get advice from any researchers not to talk about any of the stranger aspects of, the things that happened on your property?
Well, I mostly surrounded myself. I mean, I've met a few really good friends since then. And I was on the BigfootForums.com too for a while at the beginning too. So I kind of had voices in both camps, put it that way. To me, the way the only way I could get my footing is to try to find out the actual real flesh and blood science of what's going on. Because, and I spent a lot of time trying to debunk things and try to figure things out and try to find logical answers to things, even though the whole Bigfoot thing is, seems, not logical to a lot of people. But once I knew for sure that it was, real and around and doing things and doing similar things to what other people were saying that, it was doing, that's where I lived. I lived there. But this other side of my actual experiences when things happened, when I least expected it, when I was just kind of like free and not thinking about anything, or just kind of having a joyous moment, or, just, I don't know, people say sometimes, you're just at a higher level of consciousness or something. Not that I would do that, but you can get that way when you're sitting out at night looking up at the beautiful stars, all night, and listening to, just being in nature and just feeling good. And it's just everything. There was just too many things that kept connecting with me. I'm like, wow, when I did this, that happened, or when I felt like this, that happened, or when I actually made some sort of connection or understanding, bam, I got some sort of confirmation. But I've also studied, the mind can do some things, power of suggestion, or, confirmation bias. And so I spent a lot of time trying to think about it. And when, this is kind of funny. There's another example of something weird. At the time, I would get so twisted up about it, and just the whole process of it and how it was just taking over my life sometimes. And, that's all my friends heard about. That's all Bernie heard about. That's all my relatives had heard about. The people who work, that's all I heard, I'm just one of those ENFJ personalities that, if it's on my mind, I have to talk about it. But it just got to be too much sometimes. And I'm like, I don't care what you're doing tonight. I'm putting the headphones on, and I'm going to listen to my music, and I'm going to look at the computer, and I'm just going to shut you out. I can't tell you how many times it would happen that I'd take the headphones off, or I'm queuing up another song, and that's when I'd hear the knock. Like, it was like a game. It was like a sense of humor, and I'm like, no, come on, it's, I don't know. It's just, I ended up getting to be friends with, Tom Powell's been a great person to talk to about all this. And, got to know Henry Franzoni recently too. He's a good friend. And, so my philosophy on this is that if you're just going to stick your paddle if you have one oar in the canoe, then you're not going to go straight. You have to have two, one on either side. And so maybe there's some information here on the left side that science hasn't caught up with yet. And if nothing else, it's really fun to think about. And then there's the other side where it's just like, okay, we just got to keep moving, and we need solid science and things that are provable. Otherwise, none of it's not going to do anybody any good. Everybody's going to be laughing at us and think we're all just a bunch of crazy YouTubers or
something. Which we are. As far as are you leaning a certain way, Suzanne, with this? Do you find yourself vacillating between, the flesh and blood and another possible answer?
I don't know. That's a difficult question. Maybe it depends on, something will happen. Gosh, even this past December, something will happen one way, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, I'm definitely in this camp. A friend of mine had showed me. She's from Canada. Showed me a First Nations wave that they do, and I came out on the porch one night, and it was cold, but decided spend a little bit of time outside, Christmas season, beautiful stars, and I just for the fun of it, I was feeling all festive. We'd been wrapping presents and stuff, and I just looked over the woods, and I'm just like, hello, and I did the wave, and I immediately got tap tap, and I'm like, whoa, like seriously? I'm like, that just happened? But then I'm like, maybe it didn't, so then I go back over to the other side, and then I'm like, this is crazy. You have to stay, in the science, flesh and blood. But then I'm like, then something else happens, and I'm like, wow, but that just feels so right to me. And so I'm in the other side. So I think about it all, and I try to, one thing I'm really good at is identifying who is smart in this Bigfoot community, and who knows things. And I'll listen, to all the smart people. And it doesn't mean that, like, okay, if this one tells me this, then I'm just going to say, okay, yeah, you're right. Or that one says, no, this one's wrong. You got to believe this way. No, I'm not, I don't sway in the wind in terms of who tells me things. I just take their information, their good information that I'm so grateful for, that they've done years of research, and I'm the beneficiary of. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is what, this is what the information that they're looking at. Now, how does that apply to what I'm looking at? And I did my husband runs programming software for people that take job interviews for large companies. And so it's like the psychology software, I forget what they call it, but there was one time when he had to test his new tabulation system or whatever, and so he's like, here, sit down, you have to take this test. I'm like, okay. And so he's going off to the store, and he comes back, and he's like, you're still doing it? I'm like, yes. I'm like, go away, I'm figuring something out. And so it turns out it spit out like 26 different reports on me, which I was like, okay, well, what's it say? I'm not going to read all these reports about myself, just give me the highlights. And he said that it showed two things. One is that I test really on the far end for trusting people. So yes, I recognize that, that somebody tells me something, and I'm like, wow, really? That's wild. And I think about it, and I guess I learn the hard way sometimes when I find out people are BSing, which everybody does in this field at one time or another. That you discover that somebody's trying to BS you. But I seriously would take it in. But the other thing it said was that it said I'm a B9, and I'm like, well, what does that mean? And he said it just means that I test really high on the end of discerning patterns. And so I guess over the period of time that I've been here, and it's been a very standard, research area. The only thing that changed was the porches, but I could tell when things are happening or not happening, and so, or when things are different. And so after 20 some years, I've connected some dots, but can I say that any of those dots can hold up to any sort of solid research? No. But do I believe some of this, telepathy or whatever it's doing. I mean, maybe it's just like your dog that watches you incessantly, and you think your dog knows what you're thinking, but because it knows what you're going to do. I mean, I don't know. I don't have any answers yet.
When it comes to one of the things you mentioned here, I wanted to ask you if you ever thought about things happening at 3 a.m. Did you find that the number 3 was coming up as far as like three raps, 3 hits, things happening at 3 a.m? Was there? Did the number 3 mean anything to you?
I never thought about that, except for I mean, the fact that maybe that was just my body clock that got up at that time of the night. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it wasn't. No, I never had anything 3 like that before.
Okay. What about dreams? Did you ever find that you had really strange dreams? Did anything prophetic happen? Were you ever communicated with? Anything like that?
Yeah, that was. I haven't had a Bigfoot nightmare in a while, but I could tell you that it was. Well, I'd have them quite a bit. What was great is that we were camping. I was camping out at some sort of Bigfoot event. One was about a year and a half ago, maybe 2. And there was this guy who was from the BFRO, and he was a psychiatrist. And I'm like, really? It was like, well, let me pull my chair up next to you and get some like free, free time.
Sure, yeah, get some free couch time.
Hell yeah! I'm like, what do you know? And I did. I talked to him about these nightmares, and I felt like I was being yanked out of my body, and I didn't like that. And I would, I don't know if I was screaming or moaning or something like that. And I can't tell you how many times my husband had to wake me up. Suzanne, you're having a nightmare. You're having a nightmare. And I mean, it's just, and he told me, he's just like, there's trauma. You went through trauma. And so, yeah, you have nightmares. And he's like, when was the last time you had a nightmare? I'm like, it's pretty good. It's about 6 months ago. He's like, okay, well, that's good. And so it's just, yeah, I mean, it wasn't always getting yanked out of my body, but there was just, I'd have Bigfoot nightmares.
Were these dreams different than other dreams or different than other nightmares? What do you mean yanked out of your body?
Well, I didn't have any. I wasn't a nightmare kind of a girl before that. There was times when I felt like I was being pulled out of my body, and like I just felt like I was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's just how I could describe it. I felt like I was just being pulled, like I was moving away.
Mm-hmm.
I was, and I didn't like it. I was like, yeah, I know. So I didn't, and it wasn't always the being pulled away part.
Mm-hmm.
There was other times where there was one time when I was, I saw myself on the front porch and there was a little one there, like really short one, and it was just like hanging out, like, kind of coming up on the steps or something. I'm like, wow, you're small, but then there was other times when there's just, I mean, I don't know, it's a Bigfoot nightmare. It was a nightmare when it approached me on the porch. Somebody said, why don't you turn around and look at it? like no. Then I'd really be in trouble.
What about
turn around and look at it?
Suzanne, what about paralysis of any kind during your nightmares? Did you ever have sleep paralysis?
Yes. That's yes. I hate that. Hate that. Yeah. So that was probably when I would be vocal, and that's when Bernie would wake me up.
Okay, so describe this. Do you mind talking about this?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I mean, as much as I could, remember of how that was, except for, being horrifying.
Okay, so you're awake when this is happening?
No, I was in a dream.
Okay.
When you're in a dream, you think it's real. You think you're awake.
Mm-hmm.
And then, thank God, when Bernie would wake me up and I'd be like, oh, God, I think I was a dream.
Right. So these
But,
are these are night terrors. These aren't nightmares. These are to the point where you're, reacting physically, and Bernie notices this.
So so there's, I guess, there's a difference between nightmare and night terror. Night terror is when you're screaming and
Right.
being loud.
Like, well, yeah. I mean, if sleep paralysis, the way I always understood it, is that you're awake and you can't move, and you feel a presence in the room.
Well, I don't know that I felt the presence in the room.
Okay.
I think it was, I think it was all in my mind. Whatever my mind was doing at the time, and it's kind of like, the tornado dreams, where you're running for the house and you're running in slow motion. You
Right.
can't quite get there. And the tornado's approaching. But
Right.
no, I mean, I was asleep, having some sort of scary dream and vocalizing it to the point where it woke my husband up, and he would wake me up.
Okay. What about marks on your body? Did you ever find any marks or anything on your body or on your clothes that shouldn't be there when you were sleeping?
No.
Okay. Nothing like that.
No, nothing strange.
No. Well, as far as the strange goes, I mean, you're kind of in the pretty, low to medium category at this point. So, I mean, you don't have too much to worry about.
Well, you mean low to medium strange? Yeah, right. It's like, nothing strange. Like, if the whole, experience isn't strange. Yeah.
What about, have you ever had anybody show up at your house or take a look at your house that drive by slowly, and, strange cars, anything like that, or any strange phone calls or anything like that?
I mean, sometimes there's a lot of tourists around here in the summer, and Bernie and I did talk about that when, we were asked to do the back 80. I'm like, Bernie, they're going to figure this out where we are, all this. And we're just like, what the hell? We don't have anything to hide. But, there might be some lurkers around, but in terms of people driving by slowly, maybe they're like, okay. I mean, I don't know. I doubt it, though. I mean, there might be a couple people every once in a while, but I mean, they're not about big. Well, they're not a lot of Bigfooters around here. They're just more about like canoeing.
Right. Yeah. And you're not too far from Salt Fork, are you? How far are you from Salt Fork?
75 miles.
Okay. And do you go to that conference?
Oh, yeah. That was fun. The first conference I went to, oh my gosh, it was in 2014. I walked in there, Bernie and I walked in there, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's all these other people that are into Bigfoot. I'm like, look at this. It was crazy. It was crazy fun. And that's where we ended up sponsoring Tommy and Marone. And I remember Mark Maisel calling and saying, when they were announcing the speakers, he's like, Bob Gimlin's going to be the speaker. And I'm like, who's Bob Gimlin? It's like, I'm embarrassed to say that now. I mean, I met Bob, and Bob was actually he was at our house. He even signed a chair, one of our porch chairs. There's a whole bunch of them that Mark DeWorth had brought to our house on their way down to one of the conference, to one of the OBC weekends. That was 2016. So, yeah, Bob's great. I mean, I met so many great people. I went from feeling like I was totally alone by myself dealing with this to meeting the greatest people in all of the whole Bigfoot community. And I'm so thankful and grateful to them for sharing their information and being patient with me too, most especially. And they've just turned out to be really, really great friends.
Now, are you in the process of helping other new witnesses deal with their own experiences?
I did have somebody call me about a month and a half ago and said that they had seen the back 80 and they just wanted to reach out to somebody. They didn't really want to talk to an investigator type person, but they just, kind of wanted to unload stuff that was going on at their place, which was great. It was and Bernie and I, ended up meeting him at, someplace for eggs and coffee, and it was great to talk to them, and because I've been there and I understand it.
Right.
And then now in Loudonville, now I'm known as the Bigfoot lady, which is kind of funny. So it's like anytime, which is great because I was like, yeah, anybody's got any stories, let me know. So everybody knows that if, there's anything going on, and there's, some people that have come forward about stuff that was going on with them in 2013 that was very interesting. Anyway, I've got my nose to the ground. So, because the local information to me, I mean, I think it's interesting what's going on in different, parts of the country and whatnot and all the research that goes on. But for me, the most important thing is to keep a lid on and find out what's going on locally, because that helps me get answers to what it's doing or why.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, I had you on mute there for a second. Well, this is exactly what I wanted to find out from you, Suzanne, and I'm glad you were able to go there on some of these things. This was a little bit of a difficult interview to talk you into doing, but I hope I didn't put you in a weird position talking about some of this stuff. I mean, obviously, we go much stranger than these experiences, but I mean, the fact is that you've seen some unexplained lights, and you've had some stuff happen that seem like gamesmanship or trickery, and some acknowledgments with you as far as maybe listening to you. Now, how often do things still happen?
It's been a while. It seems like I went for 31 months without hearing a knock. And from April of 2016 to the end of November 2018. And then one night I heard a knock. It was like after I was singing a song, like my favorite song from high school or something. Like, when you sing Nobody's Around. And after that, I heard this knock. And I'm like, wow, that was a knock. That's exciting. But I wasn't sure. And then it was like maybe 6 months later, I heard another knock. And then I had gone to the Hocking Hills Bigfoot Conference. And I was so impressed by everybody, keeping good logs and things like that, and writing things down. And people had been nagging me to just write things down. And so one night I sat down here outside on the porch and at the table and just cranked out 13 pages of everything that happened and the timelines and how I felt and how I reacted. That night I heard 9 knocks. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it went from like nothing to 9 knocks. It was like 360 degrees around me. And I got 6 of them recorded. The other 3 were, faint enough that didn't really come, but I heard them. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, so now does this mean that they're reacting to what I'm doing because I'm putting all this out sincerely and, just writing. And so that was kind of strange. But there's 2 other incidences. I don't know how much time you have, but I'll try to make it quick. But that happened here that I didn't mention about. There was another seeing a light thing, and then there's that. And then there was another thing that happened with the Chief Wahoo little rally post that we had that kept getting yanked out of our yard, and that was crazy. But the one night, it was February of 2015, and it had been so cold for like 2 weeks, like below zero, and stuck in the house for just tired of being in the house, and it got up to a balmy 22 degrees. I'm like, oh wow, this feels warm. And I was leaning up against the car in the garage and just kind of thinking about things, and then all of a sudden I saw this kind of a flash and then into a glow. It was on the hill, and I'm like, that's really weird. It was almost like somebody had lit a torch or something, like a Coleman lantern or something, and then it was glowing for about 20 seconds. And then all of a sudden it shut off, and then my phone rang. It was, my sister-in-law calling me back or something. So that was a weird light thing. And then the Chief Wahoo thing that happened, Cleveland Indians have the logo that's controversial because it's a caricature of Native Americans, which, they're phasing it out now. But in 2016, the Indians had gone to the World Series, and then, somewhere I got this wooden post with the Chief Wahoo, head on it. And I, put it next to the porch, and it was in the ground just as you walked up the stairs. Just Cleveland Indians fans live here, kind of thing. And it fell out or something, or fell down. So I'm like, okay. So I put it back up, and then it was down again. And then I'm like, Bernie, can you do something about this? And so he's like, okay. So he takes a hammer out and he puts it in the ground, and then it got yanked out. I mean, Bernie's like, why, how could this possibly come out of the ground? So he goes to the garage and gets this huge tool of some sort. I don't know, it was a mallet or something, and he pounds the crap out of this thing. And just like, nothing is moving this thing. Well, next day, it was yanked out of the ground and laid down, like flat, not like it had fallen. So I was laughing with Tom Powell about this. He's like, why that is,
Yeah.
And he's like, that's why the Indians have won the World Series since 1948, because of that logo. So anyway, I put some sort of like little Bigfoot talisman together. It's like, I'm not pulling it out of the ground. I think we got to have this thing up. It's good luck for, the team. It's like, it's not good luck. So maybe I should take it out before the So anyway, that's about the extent of all the weird things here. So yeah, I don't know. And I don't know. I'll keep listening. I don't know. Nothing else major weirds happened since then.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's pretty incredible there. I mean, they must have a sense of humor, or maybe they're sensitive about Native Americans, in general. So it'd be interesting.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of, if you every time we turn over the, ground for the garden, there's a ton of arrowheads here. I mean, this was a very highly populated Indian area. So, I'm not saying that it's a Bigfoot or whatever, but maybe it's an Indian spirit, it's just like, yeah, screw you, this thing's out.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Okay. So what do you have? You have anything coming up this year? I mean, a lot of the conferences have been canceled. Were you slated to go to any conferences that were canceled, like I have been?
Well, OBC was rescheduled to August 15th. So in Cleveland, or Ohio has flattened the curve on on the virus. Right. So hopefully it'll be out of here by then. And then there's also a BFRO expedition that I've been helping with running advanced trail work for the one, but that's in June. So hopefully that's still going to go. But those are the two things. And then I always go to the Hocking Hills Bigfoot Conference too. So I just pretty much stay local. Although we'd like to get out. It's on our bucket list to get out to the Pacific Northwest. And I'd love to get down to the PGF site. Just got some great maps from the Bluff Creek Project guys. So that was really cool. I'd like to check that out. But one day.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon.
No, I mean, this would be the perfect time to be out in the woods. So many people are self-quarantined right now. Not that I'm suggesting you break out of quarantine, but I would imagine the redwoods would be pretty spectacular if you could find some decent private property to roam around in Northern California on, or something like the PGF site. But
it would be great. I'm at least fortunately, I'm we're happy here. I mean, I've been, we've been here since, for a month now, kind of thing. And, but I'm not, I could stay at our place the whole time. And Bernie and I have kayaks too. We've got a couple runs that we did reconnaissance on last year, that, are totally, there's a great run for anybody listening that's in Ohio that wants to go kayaking or canoeing, and you have your own, well, you can even do it with there's a couple liveries that do it, but you start at Greer and then you go down to Brinkhaven, and there's nothing between Greer and Brinkhaven except for river. And so that I kind of want to go squatching on the river and find some little island and stay overnight too. We're going to do that.
Oh yeah. Well, once you're in there, there's no leaving. That's for sure. You'd be captured talent for the Sasquatch come 3 a.m.
Yeah, another little lab rat thing.
That's
right.
The
one thing I felt a lot of times I'd get mad about, because I'm just like, I felt like they're like, oh, let's see what she's gonna do if we do this, and I felt like a science experiment, and sometimes I was just like, quit it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Suzanne, for talking to me this evening, and I imagine you're probably going to stay up late tonight and see what happens.
Of course, the recorder's always going. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tobe. You've been very kind, and I know I talk a mile a minute, and I get all excited about this stuff. So
No.
going into it. You're very nice to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And while you're out tonight, keep your eye in the sky. There's been some really interesting stuff that's happened all over the globe. The Pacific Northwest has been hit pretty hard with some UFO stuff, including this.
Really? Oh, see, I don't want the UFOs, though. I really, that scares the crap out of me. I do not want any UFOs, but I'll look at some other, the stars are gorgeous tonight.
There you go. Just look at the
We've
stars.
been cloud covered for quite some time, so I will keep an eye out there. And is there any message, since you seem to be very well connected to all of this stuff, is there a message that you want me to send out there from you?
Oh, no. I wouldn't even pretend to know a message. So much of this is guesswork, and it should be fun. Sometimes it takes a turn for the really weird, and it feels like it's there's something important happening. But I think your attitude about it, you're such a likable, fun, nice person, and I sense that over the phone. I wouldn't change a thing. I wish more Bigfooters had your sensibility. It would be a lot easier to hang out at conferences if they were Suzanne's at every booth or Suzanne's at every podium. So no, it's just been a delight, and maybe we'll find each other in the woods here soon and be able to have one of those Michelob Ultras.
Oh, that'd be great. And thanks for all the great work that you've been doing. I just keep it up. I really enjoyed your conference last weekend, and I'll be following you. Okay,
Suzanne, have a good evening. All right, Suzanne Ferencak, everybody, The Back 80. Check out her documentary, please. She's up to she's got stuff cooking, I think, in the old Bigfoot pot. So check out her Facebook page, Suzanne Ferencak. I'm sure she'll friend you if you're the right kind of people. Okay, so what do we have? We have an audiobook that I should be promoting. And so let's do that. If you want to hear the Al Moon story front and center, there's a 4.5-hour labor of love called the Al Moon Lab, a shared paranormal experiment. Sounds that you've never heard before, a story that's never been told before in that detail. And you can find it for $3 at strangebrowradio.com. There's a link. Go right to the link. It will take you to the PayPal account. And there for $3 on SoundCloud, you can download the file. And there's a lot more for $3 that you can get than just the audiobook. So what a bargain. There's quarantine webinars. We're going to be doing strange strolls up there. Those are like Choose Your Own Adventure, YouTube series channel deal. Anyway, check it all out. strangebrowradio.com, or you can go to paypal.com/strangebrowradio and become a PayPal member. For $3, $6, extra content at the $6 window, and $3 you still get a whole lot. So check that out. strangebrowradio.com has it all, and we're keeping that updated. Also, possibly coming up in June, the Wolf Creek Inn is opening its doors in Southern Oregon. There could be a State of Bigfoot conference that I'll be speaking at. I'll tell you more as I learn more. But things are loosening up here in Washington State with quarantine. Masks are being ripped off like burning bras. I don't know what that means, but things are coming off, including these dumb masks. They're not dumb. I shouldn't say that. A PSA, please wear your mask. But man, if we can take them off and just be done with this, then I'll be happy. But right now, keep your mask on. Keep your bra on, too. Strange Brow Radio does not encourage you to burn your mask. All right. In the future, we will have more quarantine webinars being downloaded to the Patreon page. And next week is my strange stroll to the Hidden Hill Cemetery or the Sorceress Hollow. And so go to YouTube, Strange Brow Radio, and become a subscriber. Like on our videos and see what's going on with our first strange stroll. And yeah, Should be a good time. All right, folks. Be careful out there. And, of course, I will see you in the trees.